Effie and this is What Effie Reads. Today I'm going to be talking about the best books that I've read in 2021 so far. These books will be in no particular order, they're just whatever order I listed them in when I wrote my list, I suppose. I was going to do like 5 stars and honourable mentions, but I actually think that I've given enough books 5 stars this year that I'm just going to mention 5-star reads. And these are the only books that I've given 5 stars to so far. So the first one we've got is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This is a book that I listened to as an audiobook, and it took me a wee minute to get into it, and then when I did, I just completely fell in love with these characters. Not really sure like the best way to describe it. It's like essentially following 4 young men after they finish university and they move to New York, and it's the different paths their lives take them. But really it's much more of a focus on this one particular man called Jude, and you look at both his future. It spans, I want to say, about 30 years, and also you get flashbacks into his past, and just there was so much that I absolutely adored about this book. It is heartbreaking, but it's also really, really beautiful, and I'm so glad that I finally picked it up. And then I bought a physical copy so that at some point in the future I can reread it and annotate it, which I'm really looking forward to. And the second book we've got is Snowglass Apples by Neil Gaiman and Colleen Doran. This is a graphic novel, and it's kind of an alternative retelling of Snow White. It's very, very dark, and I loved it for that. And it completely like turns the whole Snow White story on its head. I think part of why I loved it so much is that I just read The Sleeper and the Spindle, and that was like one of my biggest disappointments of this year. And then I read this and I was like, this is everything that I was looking for in The Sleeper and the Spindle. Like, obviously this is Snow White, Sleeper and the Spindle is Sleeping Beauty, but I just wanted that kind of Neil Gaiman twist on a fairy tale. But I didn't get that from Sleep and the Spindle, and I 100% got it from this book. And like even the artwork is absolutely stunning. So I am so glad to have picked that up. So the next book we've got is Show Us Who You Are by Elle McNicoll, and I will also grab A Kind of Spark, also by Elle McNicoll. I read both of these books this year and they are both 5-star reads. They are standalones, but they have some similarities. So they both have an autistic protagonist, and in A Kind of Spark, you're following this young girl who learns about witches in her local village and realizes that there's a lot of commonalities between the way that she's treated for being autistic and the way that the witches were treated. So she decides that she's going to campaign for them to erect a statue in memory of the witches, and it's just such a beautiful story. And then Show Us Who You Are is a kind of sci-fi story, and it feels like it takes place in the very near future, where you've got this company called Pomegranate who create these holograms that they've colloquially refer to as grams, as a kind of what's the word, like a digital immortality. And they ask our protagonist Cora to come in so they can interview her to try and better recreate neurodivergent grams, although things aren't exactly as they seem. And I would say this book hits a lot heavier than I expected and in different ways than I expected. But both of these books are absolute gems, and I'm so glad that I have now read some of this work. And I will be looking out for her future works as well. And the next book we've got is True Crime Story by Joseph Knox. This is a book that I had an arc of, and like, it was pretty much exactly as it was blurbed as being, and sounded amazing, and then it was even better than I expected. So you're following this novelist, kind of investigative reporter, as she's trying to find out what happened to this girl that went missing at a university party almost a decade ago and hasn't been seen again. And the way that she's trying to find this out is by interviewing those who knew her best. So her close friends and family. And it's really cool how slowly but surely you are thinking you know what happened, and the way that the past and the present collide, and then the ending, it is so good. As you might be able to tell from the fact that I actually went out and bought a copy. I loved it so much. And the oh dear. The next book we've got is A Song Below Water, and if I had the sequel, I would also say A Chorus Rises, because that was also a 5-star read for me. This is following Effie and Tavi. Let me get them right. Oh, sorry. Tavia. I could have sworn it was Tavi. Well, now I feel stupid. Because I'm sure I've talked about this in another book and called the character Tavi. So you're following Effie and Tavia. Tavia is a siren, and Effie, you're not really sure, but strange things keep happening around her. And it's just such a beautiful story about like a sisterly bond, but also has some really cool supernatural elements, and also has a great like social justice message. And then A Chorus Rises is a sequel, but it also follows a different character. So it's a character that you meet in the first book. And I can't really say too much, but it was really good to see the story from another perspective and learn some more of the mythos, and also making a character that didn't seem sympathetic without taking away who they were as a person was just absolutely fantastic. The next book we've got is Sage and King by Molly Ringle, and the author describes it as being like a Mirtha story. So we've got a young prince who is thrust into being a king after the rest of his family is killed off, and then you've got this sage who like basically deals with like plant magic, and they're kind of like enemies to lovers, but they don't not get along for very long. And it's just such a lovely, like such a fun, fantastical tale. And I love the way that Ringle writes. So I'm not surprised there was a 5-star for me. And then we've got How to Be Autistic by Charlotte Amelia Poe. And this book is a non-fiction. It's kind of a memoir, kind of a collection of essays. And I just found it so deeply impactful. It's only about 160 pages long, but I had to keep stopping to kind of take a breath and recalibrate, because it is so impactful and it spoke to me on such a deep level. And it's really, really honest as well, which I love in a book. I love that raw honesty. Although, you know, I would never ask an author to lay their pain out just for my entertainment. I just thought it was just so, so well written. And then the next book, I think, was my very first 5-star of the year. And it was Forever Ends on Friday by Justin A. Reynolds. And I went into this book not knowing anything about it. And I think that is what had such a deep impact for me, because I wasn't expecting the events that transpired to transpire. It's kind of lightly science fiction, slightly contemporary. Well, no, it's very contemporary, but it's got a slight science fiction to it, where loved ones are able to be brought back from the dead, but you only have, like, they only have a limited, like, amount of time before they will die permanently. And it's a book that's about grief and also like getting beyond the grief. And it also manages to be funny whilst being so sad at the same time. I just thoroughly recommend it. And then we have got Battle Royale by Kushan Takami. I really should know how to say this author's name, but apparently I don't. So in case you've not heard what this book's about, I mean, I'm guessing you probably have, but it takes place in a sort of dystopian, well, it takes place in this dystopian empire, I think, that's roughly based around Japan, where every year a certain number of classes are randomly selected to participate in what is known as the program, where the classes have to fight to the death until only one is remaining. And it's really dark, really gory, but also really gripping. You manage to get quite a lot of backstory and interpersonal relationships in this book. And yeah, it was a little bit difficult to follow initially, because you have got 42 students plus any other like auxiliary characters, but very quickly it feels like it narrows down to just a few, and it kept me guessing right up until the end. And I enjoyed it so much that I picked up the like side story manga, Battle Royale Angel's Border, and I've also picked up the the actual manga, the 15 volumes. So I'm looking forward to reading that as well. And the final book is Rainbow Milk, which I probably can't do it justice, but it follows a young black man called Jesse who is disfellowshipped from his Jehovah's Witnesses church after it's discovered that he is gay. So he moves to London, and it's kind of him discovering himself and also like discovering gay culture, but also he gets involved in drugs and sex work. And it's very much literary fiction, and I honestly cannot do it justice, but until this year I didn't think I liked literary fiction, but I think it's that I hadn't found good literary fiction, and this is good literary fiction, and I definitely recommend it. And I will also note that the first 50 or so pages are written in, I think it's Jamaican patois. Yes, the first 50 or so pages are written in Jamaican patois, and like stick with it, because like by the end of the 50 pages, if you're not familiar with the patois, you do settle into it, but it then switches away from the patois. And that is all of my 5-star reads so far this year. Let me know if you've read any of these and if you love them. And I'd love to know what standout reads you've had so far in 2021. And until next time, bye!